what the freak is up? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Autumn. I'm a licensed registered nurse, and in this video I'm going to be giving you my top 5 tips and tricks and just pieces of advice for new grad ER nurses. You by no means have to be a new graduate nurse in order to benefit from this video. These are just some pieces of advice that I wish someone would have told me before starting in the ER, and hopefully this is helpful to you in some way. Woo! You guys, it is so freaking hot where I live right now in the Midwest. Unfortunately, it's like 90 something degrees and I have an all black car and that does not help. So make sure you have your little refreshments, stay hydrated. Okay, before I even get into my tips and tricks for new nurses or transitional nurses who are curious about the ER, I just want to start off by saying this. Don't be afraid. Don't ever be afraid to start something new. One of my favorite quotes or sayings is, don't be afraid to suck at something new. Like, be brave enough to suck at something new. And I love that so much because sometimes in life we just have to embrace the suck. Do you know what I mean? How are you ever gonna know if you're good at something unless you try it? I think sometimes the emergency room sounds really intimidating, like it sounds worse than it is, but it's just a job at the end of the day, just like anything else, and you will be great at it. If it's where your heart lies and you want to try it out, just trust yourself. Know that you're going to be good. There's no way you can do something consistently day in and day out every day and not get better. Like, that defies the laws of science and math. It doesn't even make sense. So just trust yourself and trust your training. Know that with time, you're gonna be great. Okay, with that being said, let's just get right into it. My first piece of advice for new or transitioning nurses is learn the flow of the ER. The emergency room runs and operates differently than other units on the hospital. We have a saying in the ER that goes like this: it's treat 'em and street 'em. What I mean by that is the goal of the emergency room is to treat people as fast as you can and hopefully get them on their way or to the ICU. You really don't want people hanging out in the ER. It's not generally a place that you want people to be because you want to make room for those serious, true emergencies. So if there's something that can be addressed or taken care of right away, that's kind of the goal of the ER. It will take time to learn that flow and develop your own flow, but once you kind of see how the process goes of like, okay, there's triage, there's different pods. Typically each ER has like pod A, pod B, pod C, and pod D, and sometimes a specific pod for psychiatric patients. You know, it's going to take time to kind of learn how it all flows, but generally on the main floor in pod A and B, that's where you're going to be getting your ambulances. So you're going to want to take care of those first, and then triage is where people walk in based on, you know, how they're presenting to you. You're going to kind of learn how to judge patients from that point on. In the emergency room, we use something called the ESI, which is the Emergency Severity Index. This is basically just a numeric scale that will tell you how critical or how sick a patient is. So you'll learn this with time, but as somebody comes to the ER, you'll see how they're presenting. Maybe they're like in tripod position, bended over, breathing really heavily, blue in the face or fingers. That person's probably going to be like a level 1 or 2, which means they need emergency medical attention right away. And the higher you go up on that scale, the less severe the patient is. And don't freak out about that. Honestly, it took me a solid like 6 months just to kind of get really familiar with how that goes, because there's some people that I thought were like kind of serious, and some of my coworkers were like, now you can make them like a 3 or 4. So that just takes time. With experience, you'll start to learn you're sick from you're not sick. And again, that's not something you're gonna know right away. So give yourself a lot of grace with that. Okay, my second piece of advice is do not pick up extra shifts. I'm not being a hater. Listen, I know you're probably in your bag. I know the money is tempting, but girl or boy, don't do it to yourself. Seriously, the ER has a very high burnout rate. Listen, you've earned those days off. So as long as you are showing up, doing what you're supposed to do for the shifts that you are scheduled for, take your days off and enjoy them to the fullest, because once you start working and getting in your flow, especially if you're full-time, you're gonna realize that the emergency room is a very fast place. What?
You what?
Fast-paced place to be. Oh my God, say that 3 times fast. With that, you're gonna get burnt out. Like, really, it just is the truth. I think most of us kind of get burnt out at around like 6 to 7 months. But, you know, you either develop a love for it or you're like, get me the heck out of here. So I stuck with it. I know a lot of people who don't, because it does take a lot of energy out of you to keep up with these shifts. Like, they're long hours, 12-hour shifts, a lot's going on. It's very chaotic. Oh my gosh, you guys, like the phone literally keeps overheating. It's crazy. How am I ever gonna make this video? Okay, anyway, as I was saying, the ER can be very exhausting. So do your self-care, take all the time that you need to rejuvenate, to get your mind, to get your body right, and get yourself ready for the next shift. Don't pick up extra shifts. Okay, this next piece of advice is a little more exclusive to new graduate nurses, but that is to really practice and get good at your skills. When I started in the ER, there were certain things that I had never done before. For example, starting an IV. In my previous job in the operating room, we had anesthesia do that for us, so I never had to do it. Legit, my first day on the floor, they were like, okay, go start a line in like room 28, 29, and 24. And I was like, oh, okay. Sometimes you learn as you go, and being thrown into the fire can be the best way to learn sometimes. But listen, here's my advice. If you have never done IVs, if you've never done Foley catheters, NG tubes, if all of these concepts are really foreign to you, please know and trust that these are going to be things that you're doing every single day in the emergency room multiple times a day. And that is because the ER is very, very heavily task oriented, and oftentimes you're going to be running around just doing a bunch of stuff, and you're going to want to get good at these skills. You don't want to go into something and, you know, like in my case, never have done it before, and then you're expected to do it very quickly. So my advice is, if you are a fairly new graduate, take advantage of the opportunities that your school has for you. A lot of times your schools will have simulation labs, or like just labs where you can practice your skills, and this will be open to you for honestly forever because you're a graduate of that school or that institution. I know my school, I can go to the lab anytime where I graduated from and practice skills, even though I've already been a nurse for almost 2 years. Take advantage of that. Seriously, there's no shame in the game. There's so many different types of nursing and different areas of nursing where you're not doing the same thing every day. So in some department, you might always be starting IVs, and in another area of nursing, you might never start them. So don't feel bad about it. Just take advantage of your resources and get really good at these skills, or at least know how to like set it up. So if you need someone to help you, you know, you kind of have like a general idea of what's going down. I think that will really, really help you. And that's definitely something I wish someone told me when I was starting in the ER. Okay, next piece of advice. This one took me a while to get the hang of, and that is documentation. If you're currently a nurse and you're coming from a different unit to the ER, you are going to be like probably irritated because there's seriously almost no time to document. It is very, very rare that you get time to like actually sit down at your computer and chart. And that's because there's so much going on all the time, and there's a lot to do. And oftentimes you're gonna have like families coming out of the rooms asking you for things, water, blankets, meds, things like that. So you're not really gonna have time to chart. And with that being said, you're gonna have to find the time. So my advice is, every single time you go into your patient's room, badge into that computer and start charting right away, because you're probably not gonna get, again, another 5 or 10 minutes to sit down, and you don't wanna forget things. At the end of the day, documentation in nursing truly is everything, because we learn, like, if you didn't document it, you didn't do it right. And you don't wanna be held to those standards. It is a legal document, so make sure that every time you enter the room, check your patient out, like talk to them, see what they're presenting like, and then start charting right away. So like, okay, vital signs are this, O2 stats are that, wound looked like this, now it looks like that. You know, you wanna kind of like get familiar with the process of how that goes, and you wanna make your body, like muscle memory, get really used to just walking in the room, badging, charting. And don't neglect your patient. You know, with that being said, like obviously do your interactions, but if you're charting it right then and there, you won't forget it later on. So that is my piece of advice. That took me a while to get the hang of, because there were days where I'm like, yep, didn't chart that, didn't chart this. And at the end of the day, you know, you really don't want to do that. You want to make it look, because you did. So take a credit for your work. You want to make sure that you have a history of all the things that you did for your patient, because you are doing things with them all day long. As I'm kind of telling you guys these things, I'm recognizing that there's so many more than what I had compiled in my little notebook here. So I might actually make a part 2, but before I conclude this video, because I don't want it to get too long, let me give you one last piece of advice, and that is to be a sponge. I know that sounds kind of silly, and what I mean by that is just try your hardest to really learn from other people. Watch your coworkers, observe them, especially the ones who have been nurses for a while. Allow yourself to be a sponge. Absorb as much information as humanly possible, because in the ER, you will never be amazing at everything. ER nurses are what I like to call a master of none but a jack of all trades, and that's just the truth. You're gonna see so many different things. Every day is gonna look different, and that's the beauty of it. But don't fall short to this trap of like thinking that you're never gonna know everything and you're never gonna be perfect and you're not good enough. It's true, you're not gonna know everything, but you are good enough. And I think just being able to, you know, allow yourself to kind of not get frustrated and allow yourself to make those mistakes and learn from them, that's really going to help you. So mindset is everything, and that's true for anything in life, not just nursing. Forgive yourself, give yourself grace, know that these things take time and you're going to be great, but you have to allow yourself to learn from your mistakes and to learn from others in order for that to be possible. I think I'm going to attach this document too that gives you like a list of questions to ask patients when they come in with certain conditions. I think that would be really helpful. That's something that probably would have helped me really early on. This is your first nursing job and you don't really have a ton of clinical background knowledge. If somebody comes in with chest pain, for example, there's a certain list of questions that you might want to ask that person, such as, where is this pain at? How long has it been going on? Has it been relieved with aspirin? Did you take any medicine for it? Describe the pain to me. Is it like sharp, shooting, stabbing? What does it feel like? These are questions that you're going to want to get familiar with asking, and they're not limited to just chest pain. It could be about a whole plethora of different things: abdominal pain, headaches, falls, etc. So I think I'm going to attach that into the description box below. So if you're a new nurse or you're a new ER nurse, take a look at those conditions and those follow-up questions that you're going to want to ask your patient, because in the ER, you are a detective. All right, so that is it. That is all I have for you guys. That is my pretty concise, conclusive list of advice and tips and tricks that I think are important for new grad ER nurses to know, or new ER nurses in general. Do not be afraid to start. Listen, we need ER nurses, man. We need you. So if you're curious and you want to jump right into it, I encourage you to do it and do it to the fullest, because I love the ER. It's an awesome place to work, and you're gonna meet so many new people and have so many amazing experiences and save a bunch of lives. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment below on this video if you have any questions. I answer everything. Stay tuned for more nursing related content that I plan on coming out with. Love you. Bye. Oh yeah, and I think I'm gonna make a part 2. I'm realizing that there's a lot of things that are probably gonna come to my mind later on that I didn't include in this little notebook here. So stay tuned for that. Okay, love you, bye.